Okay, so for this assignment, I'm going to have you guys ask a user to input two variables. We'll say variable A and variable B, whatever you want to call them. I'll teach you, we're going to go over variables, how they work, how to create them, and then how to do mathematical stuff here in Python. Um, it's kind of a basic. This is essentially the first assignment you always do, other than Hello World. But Hello World doesn't really teach you anything other than how to print Hello World. So, but this, I want you to find the Pythagorean theorem, which is why I had that quiz question. And then I want you to do essentially what you did in your pseudocode last week. I want you to just, find the sum, difference, product, and quotient of A and B, and then print those out. So essentially that part you already have pseudocoded out, and then we'll talk about how to do square roots and exponents today. And then Tuesday or Thursday, we'll do a little bit more. So I think essentially Tuesday is going to be the class of what I expect for the homework. And then Thursday I'll be taking it a step forward so you understand a little more than you need to in order to do it. So we'll see how that goes. Today we're just going to be working with variables and doing math. So, and then next week, I think a lot of you graphic weenies are going to be excited about. We're going to do Turtle, which is essentially the drawing tool in Python. You can use it kind of like you would the draw tool in like CSS. So, of the multimedia people, is anyone doing web design kind of stuff? One, okay. So Python is very good. Well, it's you can use it for graphic or for web design as well, instead of having to use like CSS or just strict HTML. You can also use PHP with HTML, but you can also use Python. You can kind of change those two if you want. But I think PHP is still king as far as what most people use. It can exceed. There will be some bonus. So if you do where the user input part, I'll give you a little bit of bonus. And then if you can, let's see, if you can print the so if you can figure out how to print the hypotenuse with just 2 decimal places, I'll give you a 5% bonus. So you can make 105 on this, but that'll be it. So let's save and closed. Grade out a score. Oh, gotta have 10. Okay, so it's up. Let's make it viewable. And then I'll put this in week. What are we on, week 3? So I'll put that in week 3. And then I'll make it due next Monday night. So I'll do that later. You guys don't need to see all the inner workings. So that's essentially this week's assignment. Pretty simple if you've ever coded before. Probably not as if you've never, but that's okay. That's what we're here for. So I don't like that gray. And it goes away if I wish I wouldn't highlight. Anyway. So variables are just like variables in mathematics, right? X, find the value of X. But in this, we essentially can assign that variable something we want. So let's just do some subtraction. Let's do variable 1 is equal to, we'll say, what's a good, somebody yell out a number.
4.
4. Variable 2 is equal to 7. Okay. So now I have our 2 variables. Essentially what we're saying to Python, we're saying this string is equal to that. Well, this word is equal to that, equal to 4. Variable 2 is equal to 7. So anytime we say print variable 2, it will print 7 because variable 2 is equal to 7. So let's test that out. Why did it print variable 1? What did I do wrong? Yeah, I put it in quotes. So a lot of you guys had kind of that issue with some of your stuff in your pseudocode. Since I put parentheses around it, I'm saying print this string, not print this variable. So I'll teach you the difference between this string and a variable in just a second. Or string and an integer. So let's save that. What do you think it's going to do this time? Print. It's going to print 4. Because I actually told it to print this variable, this item. So let's see. Now let's do got -3. So essentially, I'm telling it to print the difference between variable 1 and variable 2. Pretty simple, right? Anyone not understand what's going on here? Oh, you didn't set it up.
I did.
Did you save it?
We did, but I don't think that's
Alt it, or hit cancel. Like that time. Let's just set it to alt. What the modify real quick. Just open up idle.
Hey, question.
What's up?
Right here. The whole script was why is it not come out as written?
Just put it in quotes. You're telling it to literally print
Oh, okay.
variable 1 and variable 2.
So
You're not telling it to do the
So don't do quotes.
right.
Okay.
Because if you remove the quote, so let's talk about strings. So whenever you can assign a variable to a string, you can say variable. Let's see, we'll just say string variable is equal to Taco Tuesday is great. So now that we've done that, we can say print what do you think it's going to do this time?
Taco Tuesday is great.
Yeah. Taco Tuesday is great. So that means the string variable is actually equal to a string. A string is a line of characters. It can be numbers. So like think of your address. 4525 Sandy Oak Lane. That's where I used to live back in grade school. Just because it has numbers doesn't mean it's an integer value. It can be a string if I put it in quotes. So there is a way to like pull the number out of that and turn it into an integer. But so essentially, an integer is a number. It's
Okay,
negative
so
110. What's up?
So basically, we are coding the string equals the integer in a way, and if we
No.
put it in quotes, then it would only give us the string itself, not.
No. So these are variables, not strings. A string is Taco Tuesday is great. That's a string because I'm putting it in quotes.
Okay, one word statement. Okay.
Right. And if I were to do this, so if I go up to 7 and put it in quotes, it's no longer equal to 7. It's equal to the character 7. It's not equal to 7, but it's equal to like 7, the word.
Okay.
Think of it like, because if I try to run this, unsupported operand, integer and string. It's trying to add or subtract an integer and a string, which will never work. You'll always fail when you try to do that. Even if both of them are strings, you can't subtract things. You can concatenate them, which means I can add. I think if I were to, what's the concatenation character? We'll talk about concatenation later on. It might do it. Well, nope. Subtract won't work. Let's try. Is it plus? Is plus concatenate? I think plus is concatenating. So plus is concatenate in Python as well. It's also in Java. So essentially what I'm doing there, I'm literally putting 4 and then 7. So they didn't add to each other. You know, it's not 11, but it's 47. So we'll talk about string concatenation, all that stuff later. For right now, let's just worry about basic stuff. So an integer is a number without a decimal. It can be, I mean, everyone remember that from math, right? An integer, 4, 187, 6,000,004, but not 2.1. That's a float. That's what we call them in programming, float. So I think if we just give it a decimal place, oops, yeah, it'll add floats and integers and then print it as a float, but you essentially change this into a float, which is just decimals. It's a number with decimals. You can do long float or short float, but I think Python is just float. So, but say I were to do, let's do a product. Or let's do a quotient. Divide. Wait. So, gave me a big long decimal. And part of your bonus is to figure out how to make that only print two decimal places. And you need to round up or round down whether or not you need to. So there's some more trickery for you. You don't have to do that, just 2 decimal places. We'll talk about that another time. So that's pretty much it for just the basic stuff. But say I want to do, let's see, what are some other stuff we need to talk about? If I want to exponent it, which you'll need to do in your class, was it? There you go. So what did I do there? How did I get 16? Yeah. So with 2 multiplication signs, it becomes exponent. So that's.
Is it however many asterisks
No.
makes it to the power?
Just 2.
2.
2 makes it power. Okay. And then the number following it is, so if I want to cube it.
Oh, okay.
There you go.
Oh, goes variable. Okay.
Yeah.
Right, gotcha.
So let's see. Now square root, you have to actually import math because square root is not a basic function built into it. So you have to import math. Essentially what import does is it tells Python, yo dog, I need math. It tells Python to import from its a library. Math is one of its libraries. And it imports it. So what math includes is a bunch of cool stuff that you will need for this. So let's say, you know what, I'm feeling very generous today. I want it to look like Python. It's not really looking like Python. Can I just go to default? It's not lighting up my things anymore. Because it's supposed to print should be a different color, but whatever. Let's see if I can fix that stuff. Still not really doing it. There we go. Oh, Lord have mercy. What are you doing here? Mine doesn't do this crap. I just tell it to do orange power, and then it does it. It's fine. I will just... That's not fine. It's awful. You guys see that in the back? We need to increase the size a bit. How's that? Better. So let's do print square root dot math 16. Now, important to note, anytime you use parentheses, that you have to use parentheses with functions, and print is a function built into Python. You can make your own functions later on, and we'll actually do that. But anything within, whenever you do a function, you have to do parentheses. And if I were to just leave this off, it would not work for me because you have to have equal numbers of curly boys or you fail. Kind of like in PHP, you got to have equal number curly boys, which is this guy right here, or it doesn't work. So you essentially have to tell, and it's just like mathematics, right? If you're doing some exponents and you're doing, plus, a plus 2 to the whatever, and then times something in parentheses, you have to have the equal number of parentheses. So anytime you're doing something like this, count your parentheses. A lot of times in previous classes, people have said, Professor McWaters, I can't get it to work, and they send me their program, and they're missing this guy, or they're missing this guy, or they're missing this guy. So.
Okay, so after this word, when you put the period in there, that period just basically states that that's how you import the math.
I'm using from the math library. So I'm doing square root, which is a function within math, the math library.
Okay, so that would be the new
Yeah. And
one of the new functions that.
If I didn't have this line and I tried to call something from math, it would go, I don't have access to math. So I'm importing math, which gives this program access to it.
Can you use that whole line for any different variants of out of functions that you can use?
Yeah, anything in math.
Okay, anything. Okay, Okay, yeah, I got it.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of functions are included. Like print is obviously going to be included. That would be stupid if you had to import print. But square root is a function within math. So essentially, you're calling another function to square root 16. So when we run it, what are we going to get? Come on, math majors, math people. We're going to get nothing. What did I do? Math.square root? Maybe it's math.square root.
Yeah, I did.
There it is. So we get 4. It's math.square root, or square root, wait, yeah, math.square root. You have to call the function and then tell it which function within. You have to call the library and then which function using within the library, not the other way around. So.
Yeah, that makes more sense.
My bad about that. So yes, it is math.square root. We're importing something from math, which is imported into the program. Okay. So I more or less just showed you how to do the Pythagorean theorem part. You guys kind of see that?
So we just,
Variable 1's exponent by 2, 7 exponent by 2 equals something.
That makes sense.
And then square root that something. Yep. Okay. What's up?
Even having it like that, it's still telling me square root not defined.
Did you import math?
I have the import math in there.
Let's see. Save it. Gotta save it. You gotta save it. Anytime you make a change, you gotta save it.
Oh, that's what it was.
Or if you don't save your work often, your computer may crash and you may lose like the 16, or your virtual machine might crash and you might lose the 40-something lines that you have been working on. Which happened to me about a week ago. Very frustrating. Fortunately, the Solaris box keeps the swap file until you delete it. So fortunately, most of it was still there, but I still lost about 30 minutes of work. So that was pretty frustrating. Granted, it was easier the second time, but. So that's that part. So let's change it up a little bit. Let's say you're doing something and you want to, say we're wanting to do kind of like the Pythagorean theorem part. We want to do parentheses with their functions. So essentially what we've done, so this will be helpful in the Pythagorean theorem part, because you're going to want to set it to a variable whenever you do your exponents. So variable 1 times variable 2 equals variable 3, right? And then when we print variable 3, let's comment this out. When we do that, cannot assign to operator. 1 variable. What did I do? Variable 1. Didn't misspell it. Maybe I think I have to do it the other way around. I think Python works from right to left. So home. There we go. Yeah. So you have to put the new variable on the left. Because Python does stuff essentially right to left. So essentially it was trying to call variable 3, which wasn't really named yet. So and here's another thing. If you can't figure out how to do something, don't be ashamed to look it up. Like, I have to look up syntax for PHP all the time, and that's my job. Like, I'll say, because right now I'm trying to figure out, I have this huge list of all these variables, or all these strings, and I'm trying to find in that list or in that array, does this value exist? And right now I'm not doing it right because it's jacking up. So I go to Stack Overflow or W3 Schools. Remember I told you guys about that? W3 Schools. That is good. That is a great place to start. And I'll put that link. Did I put that link in a news tool for you guys? I know I did an online class. Okay. I'll put it if I don't have a news item on the splash page of the class, I will put that there. Like I said, if you can't figure something out, try Googling it first before you ask me, because I think you'll learn better if you're trying to figure stuff out yourself rather than I just hand it to you. He's sort of my manager. He said, I told you guys, a lot of you guys are kind of struggling with Python or with programming because you've never done it before. He said, give him a carrot, don't give him a stone. I shouldn't make you guys feel like dum-dums, but I shouldn't just give you the answer either. So it's hard, because I've always been interested in computers and programming, so it's always kind of just came easily for me. But I realize it's not like that for everybody. So, but everyone understand what we've talked about so far? Any questions? Pretty simple. But this is kind of getting you in that mindset of how programming works. So we need to go a little putsy at first until we really get rolling. So let's do some other stuff. What else do you guys want to see? Let's throw in some decision. So
Can you show us how to program power rule? If that's a
power what?
power rule.
I don't know what that is. I haven't taken a math class in like 15 years.
Oh, okay.
Well, I'll tell you what. There's this great website that can help you with that. It's www.google.com.
Okay.
Just type in power rule of Python. No, I'm serious though, because I don't know everything about Python. I don't know everything about PHP, and that's my job. I'm sure the math library has that, and it's probably just power rule or math.power rule, and it'll do for you. Like if you guys are in calculus or anything, you can use Python to do your work for you, because it's all in there. Granted, you probably won't learn it, and whenever it comes to like pen and paper final, you guys are probably going to fail. But you can't use Python? No. If you can't use a calculator, probably won't let you use Python. Now, if you have a programmable calculator, like one of the TI, I don't know what 84 was whenever I went to school. Yeah, you can probably import Python into the newer ones, but that'd be a waste of time. Just learn how to do it. But if you're lazy like me, whenever I was in high school, I was in basic programming while I was taking algebra 3, and we were doing negative a plus or minus the square, or negative b plus or minus the square root of blah blah blah. What is that called? Plus or minus the square root of 4ac minus 2b divided by 2b. Come on, you guys are in math or took it. High school was like 16 years for me, so. What is that called? Anyway, I used basic to do all that homework, and then on the final, I didn't do so well because I couldn't use basic, but I got hundreds on all my assignments. So.
He's so stupid.
Yeah, he's great, except I'm just bad at testing. That just means you're stupid. That was a joke, guys. If you're bad at testing, I understand. It's high stress. But I've never failed a certification test, so step up your game. What was I going to talk about? I was going to do something. Oh yeah, we're going to do decisions. So, say, we're running some computations for the user, and so like, say if it's, let's do this program. Everyone got this? Okay. So let's say, user input equals what are you doing? Stop. Temperature. I think that's right. I might have mixed up the. Before you write this down, let me test it real quick. Nope. May have to look this up. It's been a while. So let's input the temperature. What is the temperature outside? 75, we'll say. Say 70. Say 75. 73, okay. So, and it's good to kind of format it so it looks nice. So, please input temperature, 73. Cool. Well, we haven't told it to do anything yet. But essentially what this is saying is user input is equal to an integer that the user inputs with the, and we're telling them, please input the temperature. That's just, whatever you put there is just whatever it's going to read. Usually you want to prompt the user for something. If you leave that blank, it's just going to look blank and no one's going to know what the hell you're asking.
What does INT stand for?
Integer. Or we could do string or float or Boolean, which Boolean is just 1 or 0, true or false. You want to take discrete mathematics yet? Everyone remember the true-false tree? Ands and ors and such? Nobody? Anybody? One person? Maybe?
Oh, is this,
like if, like true and true equals true, true or false equals true, false or true equals true, false or false equals false. You guys remember that? Might have to, okay. So some people got that. It's not a terribly hard concept, but because you do use ands and ors in programming, so you got to know the difference. Essentially, for and, both of them have to be true for it to be true. So, like, if it's greater than 80 degrees and it's not raining, it's a nice sunny day. If it's raining and it's 80, then it's not a nice sunny day. So that statement becomes false. But we're not going to worry about that right now. Just something for the future. Okay. So, if user input greater than, what would you say a day becomes warm? Would you say 65? It's a warm day. That's what I'm going to say. You guys don't have an input on it because you aren't quick enough. So with with decision structures, essentially, once you put in the if statement, you have to put in 4 spaces because you're not this like everything on this side is just a basic program. The if is the basic program. So now we're talking about stuff for the if statement. So we have to tab it over. That's something built into Python. A lot of people have issues with it, but I think it makes it easier to read, and that's kind of what the creator of Python said. Whenever it's self-formatting and self-documenting, it makes it a lot easier to read.
Do you have to do 4 spaces
Or tab. The convention is 4 spaces, so just get in the habit of doing 4 spaces. Because if you tab some places and space some places, it'll bork. It will dork itself, and you'll have to figure out what's wrong, where, when, and why. So it's just easier to stick with 1, which I wasn't going to tell you guys about tab. So forget that. 4 spaces. So if user input is greater than 65, print, what a nice day. What a warm day. And then, I don't think we need to end if user input is less than 65. 4, print, what a chilly day. Sort of sad about it. Okay, let's save that, see if I did it right. So let's say it's 73. What a warm day. Hey! Let's try it again. It's 12 degrees. What a chilly day. You don't really use else in Python. You can. Well, no, that's not. Yeah, you can use else, but with else, you don't put in anything. You just do. You can do that, but it gives you a little less control. Because literally anything else, say we wanted to put another statement in there, like if it's less than 32, what a freezing day. So with just yes or no's, if and else, other stuff you want to keep using ifs.
So if you put 65, nothing comes up since nothing equals 65.
Right. So we could say, is it equal to, or is it equal to then that? See if I can remember. Yeah. So you put the equal sign after the greater than sign, which tells it if it's greater than or equal to, because you can't do like, the line above it, below it rather. So say you just like 65. What a terrible day. So essentially what this is doing, if user input is not equal to 65, then it's just a terrible day. I don't like it. 65 is the only temperature I want to live in. I should probably move to like England or Ireland because it's like 65 almost year round. Except for when it snows, and then it sucks. We'll use not equal to at some point, but right now we're not going to. You can also, so say we want to say if user input equal to 65, that won't work because equal sign in Python is an assignment. We're saying this is equal to this. If we want to test, user input against the number 65, you have to use 2 equal signs. So essentially, we're asking, is user input equal to 65? Versus we're assigning user input to that. So just something to put up in your brain and kick around, because eventually that'll come into place. But we're just kind of musing on Python right now. So say, later on we're going to ask user, would you like to continue or would you like to repeat? If user input like just one equal sign, yes, it's not going to work. So essentially, we're testing it against it. Do I want to talk about? No, I don't think I'll talk about it today. Because I think 2 weeks from now, we're going to start talking about decision structures, including like while and for, and we'll actually delve a little further into ifs and else's. Because we're going to make a program that'll ask, would you like to continue? Would you like to repeat? Stuff like that. So, and that's with the while. So, that's pretty much all you need for this assignment. I've showed you everything one way or another. We'll talk a little bit more about it on Thursday. I'll kind of program a little bit closer to the actual assignment. I would encourage you to try it and see how far you can get. And then before you ask me any questions or before you go Google searching, come to class Thursday and see if that'll fill in some blanks. That's kind of that's kind of my hope for the Tuesday. Like Tuesday, what we bare bones, and then Thursday kind of filling in the gaps. So you can kind of do it on Tuesday, Wednesday, and then Thursday you should be able to finish it. What's up?
Okay, so whenever I was trying on a notepad on this computer, I haven't made the same exact conversation on the computer at home, but you can get some error code. So like if I can't figure it out, use like shell or like
Don't do the shell. Go to
You
files.
want to email it yourself, I would say, save the file. You can email the file to yourself.
Put it in that. Or you type it out like this.
Okay.
And then
Save the file.
make sure you save the file every time. So, yeah.
Send yourself an email.
Anybody have any questions? What's up?
3. I had them on my notes, so.
Go ahead and read. Go ahead and read them out so that people online. What's up?
Alright, so the first question is just trying to make sure just the difference between a string and just a variable. It's basically the difference between English and math and how a computer reads both in a way. You're trying to translate both to different subjects into how you code. And is that the best way to think about it, or think about it?
String is just it's not exactly that thing. Like this is a string right here. Like what a terrible day is a string. It's not a number or a variable, or it's not a number. It's just a line of words, but it could be numbers. If you put numbers in parentheses,
So they
becomes
give
a
it,
string.
as more of a sequence of how it fits.
you can think of it like that.
Okay, what else do I have? Alright, I think that clears it up right there.
So, string manipulation we'll talk about probably 3 or 4 weeks from now. Say someone gives you something like this, what a terrible day. We can actually search that string for how many characters are in it, how many T's are in it, how many I's or R's are in it. So that all comes down to that's string manipulation, and that's something we'll do for like one of the last assignments we make a Caesar cipher. That'll all be character and string manipulation. So, and then when you talk about regex, that'll be for strings as well. So, we'll delve deep into the concept of strings later on. But for right now, just interested in integers or floats, because you'll need most likely, unless you use like a very simple, like if you use the perfect squares on the Pythagorean theorem, then you won't get a float. Because the question I asked, I just wanted 5. It was like 3 squared plus 4 squared equals 25 or whatever it was. I forget what numbers I used, but I wanted to give you guys an easy one. With that, you could solely do integers, but and Python's really good about handling. If you put in an integer and you multiply it or divide it by something that gives you a float, it'll automatically convert it to a float. So Python's really good about that. Other programs not so good. Like Java or COBOL or Fortran, if you try to do that, it'll just like if you get a decimal, it'll just print 0.0. It won't give you the whole mess of it. But we're not using those, so don't worry about it.
Good.
We are doing Python.
If you just go over the reasons why you had to tab or build.
It's built into Python. You have to tab, or you have to don't tab 4 spaces, because whenever they built it, because a lot of older programming languages didn't have any set formatting, so you could literally just put like if user input colon, or back then it was semicolon. You could put a print at the end of it, and then semicolon, and then another print statement. You can just make these lines of code like 1.5 miles long, and it would work just fine. Well, that's really hard to read, right? Especially like if you're trying to print it out like on a piece of paper to show somebody, and like say in PHP, you can just do. It would look like this. It would be echo technically, but and then you could do that. And you could do that. There's no. We don't have to do that. So the reason Python did what they did, they didn't want to have a statement like this. I mean, it's not hard to, it's not, you don't need a semicolon after print or after decisions in PHP. So essentially the reason they did that formatting is so we didn't get statements like this, because that's kind of hard to read. And you wouldn't do that normally, but people could, and that was the problem for Python. They wanted you to make it look good by forcing you to go 2, 3, 4. So isn't that a lot easier to read? So that's just part of Python. You have to do it. If you do this, if you get rid of one of the spaces and try to run it, it'll still work. But if you wait 1, 2, 3, if you do that, it expects an indented block. So you actually get an indentation error because they're really anal about it.
So
Just got to.
when it comes to this, Python, I'll put the new file, and is it supposed to run stuff, or is it?
It will.
Okay. So
Yeah, you put in print and then save it.
save it.
Save.
Save.
And hit run. Or you hit F5. F5 doesn't worry.
Okay.
It spits it out over here.
Oh.
Yeah.
So,
Does anybody?
So you save it first and then put it around.
Yeah, you have to save it, otherwise it won't. Essentially, because before you save it, it's essentially to Python, it's blank.
Oh, okay.
So once you save it, then it becomes a file. It can interpret. Does anybody have any questions about
Oh, that makes so much more sense.
installing Python, getting it to run, what I expect, stuff like that? What's up?
I sent you an email last night, but I've tried to essentially try to put what you put on the C2L
Mhm.
on my personal machine.
Yeah.
For some reason, I can't get it to run.
Is it Notepad++? You have to find out where that python.exe is, and then you gotta check, because I just put like username here. You have to essentially find out where it is on your system, and then put that with the command /k and all that other stuff with the current full path. I can help you with that here in a little bit. If you can't get Notepad++ to work, don't worry. You can just use idle.
Okay.
I just use it because I have more options. I can make it look bigger and change the font. But any other questions about what I expect? Anything like that? Okay.
Nothing showing up on the assignment.
The new one I just did?
Yeah.
Yeah, the assignment shows up there, but the stuff you typed in as far as what the assignment is doesn't show up.
Okay, I'll fix that. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and shut off the recording.